So let's take a look at the uterine and mammary gland changes. So the uterus actually starts to enlarge as soon as implantation occurs. Does it happen immediately, quickly? No. It does start to enlarge once implantation occurs, but not as quickly as people would think. That's how some women on their first pregnancy, they don't even look pregnant for those first 6 months, right? It's because it is growing, but not as much as it will later on in the pregnancy. So, and the things that are going to cause this whole uterine expansion, it's not really because of the actual fetus itself or embryo itself. As you can see, it's very small early on. It's mainly because the muscles of the uterus are going to get larger. They're going to hypertrophy. You're going to have hyperplasia, placental growth. So you can see the placenta in there. Let me show you guys the placenta. The placenta is, you can see it in the 4-month fetus right here. You can see it in right here, and then you can see the placenta right here. So it actually does take quite a bit of room. You have amniotic fluid in there, but of course you do have that fetus that's going to take up room. So this is showing it. A is showing it before conception. It's about the size of a fist. It's actually really small. And then 4 months, you can see the fetus here. She's bulging just a little bit. Some women won't even show in 4 months. 7 months, the fundus. Remember, the fundus of the uterus is up here. It is going to be superior to the umbilicus. So there's the umbilicus right there. And then, of course, if you take a look at that 9-month fetus, most of the abdominal pelvic organs at this point are going to be compressed. The stomach is all the way up, pushed up against the diaphragm. We'll take a look at digestive problems that happen later on because of this. The intestines are all squished up and down. The bladder is pushed down as well. And of course, that is going to cause urinary changes as well. So all of these abdominal pelvic organs are going to be compressed. So as far as mammary glands, those estrogen and progesterone levels will actually cause the tenderness in the first trimester. The placenta also is going to secrete yet another hormone. So as you can see, the placenta is actually kind of an endocrine structure because it secretes a lot of hormones. It secretes estrogen, it secretes progesterone, it secretes relaxin, it secretes MSH. So MSH is going to be a hormone that we haven't talked about yet, that we didn't introduce back in the endocrine chapter, but it's because of the fact that it's really only secreted in pregnant women. And what it does is it is responsible for darkening the nipples and the areola. It's also going to be responsible for darkening that structure that is between the rectus sheath on your abs, the linea alba. So when it darkens, it becomes something called the linea nigra. Now, not every woman is going to have that darkening of the linea alba at all. There's a select few that's going to have it, and it's just because of the amount of MSH that is being secreted. So what happens here early on with mammary glands, so that first trimester, females will actually gain probably about a cup size because of the growth of the glandular tissue that is happening here. And so you're basically developing more of the acini, those cells that are going to secrete the milk. So that's what's going to contribute to that increase in cup size and in breast size. All right, so let's take a look here at the digestive system, and then we'll take a look at nutrients as well. So remember, I just talked about insulin, that it is going to, we're going to have an increase in insulin resistance in pregnancy. And again, this is because of the HPL that we introduced early on, but also corticosteroids are going to cause this, estrogen, progesterone. There's several different hormones that are going to go in and cause insulin resistance. So remember, that is going to make sure that we have increased blood glucose levels for the fetus. But one problem with this is that it can actually lead to something called gestational diabetes in the mother. And we'll actually be talking about this here in a couple more slides, so we'll get to this in a second. Another thing that might happen is morning sickness. Some women will never experience morning sickness. And then some women might have severe morning sickness to where they actually have to be hospitalized, which is called hyperemesis gravidarum. And that is going to be where it's very severe. Sometimes they have to be put on IV fluids and things like that because they're so severely dehydrated from vomiting. They're not 100% sure what causes it. There's a lot of different theories out there. They think it might be hormones, like HCG might cause it, the high levels of HCG. They think it's kind of an evolutionary trait that has been passed down, a protective mechanism that's causing pregnant females to vomit because it's protecting them from toxins that might be in their food. Because usually when women experience morning sickness, they crave more like really dry carbohydrates where they'll only eat like crackers or something like that, which if you think about it, you can leave crackers in your pantry for a year or so and you can still eat them after a year or so. Are they going to taste good? Probably not, but you could still eat them and not get sick. But females that have morning sickness will not want to eat things like eggs or meat. And those are going to be foods that will be more prone to toxins. So that is one of these hypotheses why morning sickness is going to occur. So we take a look at some abdominal complaints, lots of them here. Progesterone is going to go in and relax smooth muscle. So the problem with this is that it's going to relax the smooth muscle of the intestines, which is not good because remember the smooth muscle is what's is increasing the peristalsis. It's helping us move food through the intestines. So if we have a relaxed smooth muscle and slowed intestinal motility, that means we're not able to move food, or of course it's not called food in the intestines, but you know what I'm talking about. We're not able to move that chyme and then through the intestines. So it stays in there longer, and that means that we're going to absorb more of the water, of course, if it sits in the digestive tract longer, and that is, of course, also going to lead to constipation as well. Some other things that are going to happen is heartburn and indigestion. So remember I talked about how specifically a little bit later on in the pregnancy when the fetus is so big that the stomach is being pushed up against the diaphragm. And what that does is, of course, it's going to, the sphincter is not going to be as strong because of that. So that lower esophageal sphincter is going to be open a little bit more. And so all that acid, specifically because the fetus is pushing on that stomach, that acid is going to kind of cause heartburn. It's going to cause it to go up into that acidic chyme, go up into the esophagus, and cause indigestion as well. So pregnant females will need to eat smaller meals whenever they get a little bit later on in the third trimester of pregnancy to avoid the heartburn and to avoid the indigestion and stay away from, of course, foods that are going to cause it as well. So because of the slowed motility, because of the constipation, females can also be more prone to hemorrhoids as well because they're using that Valsalva maneuver to try and go to the bathroom to defecate. And of course, we talked about this in the digestive system, how that is going to, of course, lead to hemorrhoids. Now, this doesn't happen to every woman, the hemorrhoids and all of that stuff. So don't think, oh, I'm not going to get pregnant ever because I don't want hemorrhoids, I don't want varicose veins. Again, we talked about at the very beginning of this section how every female is different. So it might not happen to you. It's just, you just got to do it and see, right? Who knows? So taking a look at nutrition, typical weight gain is, they say 20 pounds. I don't know so much about that, but hey, that's what the book says. But again, that can range from anywhere from 15 to 40 pounds. So, but the weight gain is mainly, of course, due to the fetus. It's not a whole lot. The fetus, if you think about it, it's only going to be about, what, 7 or 8 pounds. The placenta is very large as well. The breast tissue, all the extra breast tissue and uterine hypertrophy that's happening. You're also gaining a lot of fluid because of aldosterone. You gain 50% blood volume is going to increase. So that's a lot of fluid retention. Females that tend to gain more weight, it's usually because of adipose tissue. So since you have this being in you that is growing and developing, it's going to use a lot of energy. And that means that pregnant females do need to take in more calories per day. So usually about 300 extra calories are needed per day. And of course, the vitamins are really important. You need more folic acid. Remember that it had to do with neural tube defects. You need to avoid neural tube defects. So take more folic acid. Calcium, of course, is especially because that fetus is going to undergo ossification. It's going to need calcium, and of course for other things as well. Protein, again, we are building, not we, pregnant females, definitely not. Pregnant females are building a being in there. So in order to do that, they need plenty of protein to build, and iron as well. It's really important. Of course, we talked about that with red blood cells. So that is why more iron is required. And so you can usually get these in diet, but a lot of times doctors will prescribe a multivitamin that's rich in folic acid. So gestational diabetes kind of goes along with that whole insulin resistance. Since there is an increase in insulin resistance and there's high glucose levels for the fetus, then there is a chance that a woman can get gestational diabetes. It doesn't happen in every woman. I'm trying to remember the book. I think it says like 3 to 8 women in every 100 pregnancies. So that's not a whole lot. I might be quoting the wrong thing, but hopefully not. But the symptoms will typically appear in the second trimester. So every pregnant female is going to have to do a gestational diabetes check. They make you go in and drink this really nasty water or flavored beverage. I don't even know what it is, but and test for gestational diabetes. Some of the problems that might come about is, of course, high blood pressure and other complications. You have a risk of having an extremely large baby. And with the risk of having a large baby, that means that you're going to have a higher chance of having a cesarean section or other birthing complications as well. So if a pregnant female does have gestational diabetes, then she will need to go on a special diet to regulate those blood glucose levels. And another problem that comes about with this is that female, as well as the fetus, that of course that neonate later on, that child later on, are going to be at risk for developing type 2 diabetes later on in life.